welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today I want you to invite into a reflection. How often have you caught yourself thinking, I don't deserve this good thing unless I have been through something bad first? Or how often have you thought, if today I'm experiencing something good, tomorrow definitely will something bad is going to happen to me. So let me steer clear away from anything good, or let me steer clear away from feeling happy, joyful. It's almost like we have been taught joy has to be earned through suffering. But what if that very belief is quietly robbing us of the very joy we are seeking? Listeners, my guest knows this paradox all too well. In his early 20s, he had what the world calls success, status, health, business, education. Yet he felt deeply empty, hollow inside. And that questioning sent him on a journey across countries, cultures, and philosophies. And along the way, he discovered something profound. Behind everything we do lies a single pursuit: maximizing the good times. So, through years of research, my guest developed the good time ratio and the good time framework. And even he launched GoodTime App, the world's first life dashboard, helping leaders, changemakers, and everyday people like us measure and actually improve our satisfaction. So let's all sit together, listeners, not as audience and speakers, but as a circle of curious, open minds and hearts, and ask, do we really need the bad to justify the good? Or is there another way out there? So, listeners, meet my incredible guest, Christian W. So, Christian, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sana, for having me. It's also my honor to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, Christian, before we even try to understand the good time or the good time ration framework and all, how exactly you came across this? I mean, although I just barely scratched the surface during the intro, but was there any particular moment or like a series of epiphanies or moments or thoughts that made you feel like that I need to do something for this or on this?
And you framed it well. There was a series of epiphanies, but
Okay.
this started with moments. So there were a couple of smaller moments, and then there were big moments in my life. One of that you described already when my early 20s, 20 or 21 roughly, where I
Mm.
had all of that success I've been told is defined as success, and I felt deeply empty inside of me. And that moment,
Mm.
I questioned what's the point of being alive, because I knew how to scale it up. I knew how to do more of what I'm just doing and making it better, but it's now already not fulfilling. And if I would proceed, that would take me the next 60 to 80 years if I'm having a long life, where I'm actually just waiting for death. And I didn't see a point in being alive if this is life. So I was questioning the point of being alive. And at one point, when I asked myself, do I want to end it here or want to continue? I answered it, I want to continue, but not in that way. There got to be a different way. And that set me out to ask, what is the different way? How can I live alternatively? How can I live in a way that I'm fulfilled? And I actually tested later another time where I went for even bigger. And I came just to the second time to the result that to the epiphany that this is really pointless. There is no point to climb up a career ladder and doing something to increase economic success, to increase status, to increase acknowledgement, or whatever you define as success and chasing that is preached to us through marketing or society or even economy. So I gave up on all of that. My dad even said, "Are you crazy to give up on such job offers?" But I said, "Well, I'm in a bonus round already. I could have been dead, so I'm alive, and I see it as a bonus round." And then I set out to look for what makes life great. What is it that we are actually aiming for? And there were when I traveled through dozens of countries and interviewed back then, some of them unrecorded, meanwhile some recorded, interviewed countless of people, from monks to CEOs to retired CFOs to children, even eventually, the whole spectrum, where
Wow.
I realized all of them have different lives, and the things that I thought would lead to fulfillment, or that we've been taught, indeed are not leading to fulfillment. Even retired multimillionaires didn't necessarily have fulfillment, and
Mhm.
others seemed to have nothing, and they were fulfilled. And uh, that was really wondering me. Brought up the question: what is it eventually that we are aiming for? And I found this one common denominator. So after I also delved into philosophy and into cultural wisdom, I found that there is one common denominator that all of us pursue, and that was, we just want to have a good time, as good as possible, but also for as long as possible. And that's basically the trade-off that we've been told, even for economic success. Study something and work your butt off, that you're gonna have later a better time.
Right, right, exactly.
That's basically we are told. If you work hard as a young person, then you might have it better when you're older. And if you sacrifice on this sweet, then you might be in a better shape later. This is always this trade-off of, don't have a good time now to have a longer and better time later. And when I started with the research in my PhD to measure it, developing the good time ratio metric, the GTR, I realized actually there's a physical reason behind all of that. So why do we actually experience positive times and negative times? And I don't want to get too much into depth here, because I want to answer the question: do we have to have bad times in order to have good times? But
Mhm.
just to give a context, why we do experience good times in the first place is because a good time is a biological indicator for energy is flowing. So basically, it's just flowing inside of the organism, whether that's an animal, it's just a cell, or it's a complex biological organism like a human body, where we just feel energy is flowing. And if we have a bad time, we get the signal energy is blocked, which pushes us to change something instantly. Every time energy is blocked, we get the really bad feeling inside of us. I don't want to be here. I want to change something right away, because I do have energy inside of me, but it's blocked. And that's also where it happens that we escalate sometimes, or have fights, or feel angry, because it's actually, we have the energy to do something, and someone just says, no, you're not allowed to do that. And that, over time, if we play along with that we allow, we block the energy here, that can lead to two results. The first, over time, you're losing on energy, and you're actually degenerating and dying. In between, you find yourself in a state of numbness and feel like, yeah, this is life. It's not really great, but it is as it is. You're suppressing your flow. Or if it's too much and you're still alive, you're exploding. And then you're escalating, and then you shout people to the ground, or just quit your job out of impulse. And that is basically just the indicator your energy is blocked, and at one point you're breaking the blockage, or the blockage breaks you. And the other side, when we have a positive experience, a positive feeling, a good time, as we can summarize it, then this is the indicator of energy is flowing, and whatever triggers your energy flow, do more of it, go more in that direction. And that basically signals us, yes, this is great. I want to have this. I want to have more, and I want to keep it. The issue nowadays is that in our society actually hacked that system, more or less, but in a not a nice way. That the things that are really great for the moment, for example, some nice food that tastes just tastes delicious, it gives us a good time in the moment, but actually it is in a long term very unbeneficial. And that's where the confusion starts, where we say, but can I really do the things that feel good now, or is it causing a delayed problem? And on the other hand, we think like, if I'm compromising on a good moment now, that must mean it brings me a better time later. But that is pure guesswork. It's not validated. And it is actually against nature. Because think about it, when energy is flowing, that means the energy is flowing. So basically, you need energy to create anything that is good. Anything that needs to be built requires energy. And every time you're blocking energy, you're basically not really creating something. You're not working on full functionality. So wherever you flow and say, now I'm feeling good, I have energy to do something, then you actually can create stuff. And the more you do of that, the more sustainable you are, the better results you're creating. However, of course, if you're doing the things I'm eating every day unhealthy food, and I do more of that, well, you're draining your energy, and eventually you have a body damage. But that's a compensation mechanism that we actually say, actually, I don't want to work, but I don't allow myself to not work. I don't allow myself to change my work. I don't allow myself to do the work that I really want to do. And because I'm blocking this energy that I really do the things that I really want to do, I need to compensate with something that is slightly nice, like some sweets, to compensate actually on the big blockage. But if you really free up the whole system inside of you, that you really allow yourself unrestrictedly to do really the things you feel this is right for the long term, not just for today, but thinking about the next year, the next 3, the next 4, the next 5 years. What if I want to have a good time all the time? That means I'm allowing myself to do the things that I really want to do for the long time. Then I don't need to exploit in the day, but I can just do every day the things that I really want to do without limits. And that builds up over time in one direction where you inevitably encounter success. So yes, to answer that question, theoretically, I need to emphasize that because we don't have data throughout our whole lifetime. Theoretically, if we create a society, or not just a whole society, but just in your environment, where the things you enjoy doing also bring you the things you need. For example, if you go on a field and you like farming, if you really would enjoy that, that would bring you the food, and it's a closed system. It's working for you. If you really like to do workouts and you go to the gym and it fuels your body, then it's actually fueling you. So if you do the things that lead to the long-term success and bring you all the long-term resources that you require, while encounter it with joy, that you say, I really want to do that today, then you don't need the motivation of sacrifice, of compromise. You literally can just do all day long the things you want to do, as long as they close the loop, that they bring you the resources. And you can get those resources not just by compromising. You can earn money, and that's the main argument. Most people say, I need to work that I get the money later, so I do something I don't enjoy to get the resource I have. But there are countless of examples where people earn money with the things they love. So the argument is actually not valid. You can earn money with the thing you really like doing. It's just another action. It's a system. And in that case, just to take this example, you could have internally good times just when it comes to work and resources. And the same applies to the people you spend your time with. You don't have to be in relationships where you say, I'm suffering here and it's not good. But on the other side, if I'm staying here, then I'm having some security for my life. That's not how it's working, because if you're attractive, if you're creating a good time for someone else, that person wants to be with you. You don't have to force that person to be with you. So you can also say, I'm having a good time with that person all the time. And that is perfectly working.
Hmm. That's quite a detailed explanation in there, Christian. And I really, I also believe that when your passion becomes your profession, that's like a match made in heaven. And I, I, I really, really love that because we have been conditioned that struggle is like a badge of honor. You have to sacrifice, not for struggling to gain something. Um, but now, a few would say that um, you have to take risks to gain something. You have to sacrifice to
Mhm.
for the better. And then there are people who are actually, sacrificing uh, their uh, you know, sports or their recreational hours. There are students who are studying for like 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. People are working, there are entrepreneurs and founders. There are people who have to pay their bills. They have to work long hours just because they have to pay their bills. They have to take care of their families. What would you say with this context, Christian?
It's not thought through. It's not a complete system. So yes, I can say for one night, for example, when I wrote my bachelor thesis many, many years ago, um, I I had to hand it in very early if I wanted to graduate a month earlier. That I wanted. So I had 2 nights left to finish that thesis. For 2 nights, I can compromise and compensate on some stuff and can just work through. But
Mhm.
do that for a week, your body collapses. Do that for a year, no way, no way, and that leads to burnout. So yes, temporarily saying I'm not going to, I'm not doing my fitness today for one day. That's, yeah, your body can compensate on that, maybe even a little bit longer, but eventually for the long term, this is not sustainable. So if you really as a student say I have to study 40 hours, very, very likely your brain is not agreeing to that deal. Your productivity is collapsing after 2 hours to 50%, and after 10 hours, you're working on 10% productivity, something like that. There is a statistic behind, can check that. And that's where I'm saying, okay, if I'm working on 10% productivity for 10 hours, that's equal to 100% productivity for 1 hour. But if I'm working for 100% productivity for 1 hour, I have 9 hours saved and can do 9 hours something else that allows me to concentrate for 1 hour. And that's the same thing with when it comes to building a business. You don't have to build a business within a month. Your business should support your life. And if you choose something you really enjoy doing, why do you want to get done with that as fast as possible? You also want to enjoy the journey. And I've been there. I went there nights through it, and that is, yeah, it's not sustainable. And another thing that's very important, yes, choosing the work or your passion and making it to a work that theoretically, if we take a look isolated, that works and brings you a good time all the time. However, in practice, most people fall into a trap because they didn't close the system, that they say, my passion is actually creating enough income, or my passion, or I set the boundaries to my client that I'm only working within that scope, and then ending up doing more. So they need to put more time in a ratio that they're actually willing to give. And at that point, and I've been there as well in my first business, where I love video editing, and we had a marketing agency. And
Yeah.
at one point, it became a have to do, a must do. It wasn't, I want to work here right now. I felt with the mindset, I have to finish that project. Otherwise, I have a consequence that I don't want to have. Otherwise, my colleagues will be mad on me. Otherwise, the client will be mad on me. Otherwise, I don't get an income. All of that, and that's not the motivation for about I I want to do this, but I have to do it. And every time you have to do something, you're not enjoying it. You it's the mindset of I I want to do. This is what I desire doing right now, independent from the consequences, whether that's a positive consequences or negative consequences. Every time you're saying I'm doing something for delayed gratification, so I'm even though I'm going to the gym to be in shape later, that mindset alone is making your gym time not amazing. It sets a goal, but eventually you say, okay, I'm going to the gym to get in good shape. However, I enjoy the time in the gym. So the reason I'm going to the gym right now is because it's a great time for me. And that's the
Yeah.
same with work. And most entrepreneurs start without a, not, I wouldn't say most entrepreneurs, actually, I don't have a statistic behind that, just personal experience with people I talked. But say
Mhm.
a lot of people start a business idea initially because that's cool, I want to do that. And then I end up in, I have to do that. And then it's worse than just having a stable job. And others say, I'm struggling so much, I have to do something to change it. So I'm building a business. And both people end up being frustrated, stressed, burned out, and depressed. The opposite is someone who says, I really love doing that certain thing. Say videography or photography. Let's say you have a hobby and you like taking pictures. You say, I want to make a business out of that. Okay, fantastic. Then build a system around with the prices that you say, I need to work for 2 hours or 3 hours a day. And if I do that, then I would have enough clients, and then I pay my basic bills that I need to cover. But everything on top is a nice to have. And after you clarified that at one point and you try to lower it as much as possible, that your minimum threshold of have to do is reached very fast, you basically just enjoy the rest of the ride and say, yeah, this extra hour is just I want to, because I'm already done with the have to a few minutes after I started. And that keeps your ball rolling and you keep the joy. And also as a note, you would inevitably stop at the moment where you say it doesn't bring me joy anymore.
Yes, that's true. That is true. Well, that's very, very detailed in explanation, Christian. And you mentioned about ratio, and of course, there are still not statistics in there to support it, but uh, I want our listeners to know something that you have created, which is the good time ratio.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, can you explain like how it works? Like, can we quantify joy? And
Yes.
I mean, how exactly it is going to bring or help us experience more of it? I mean, this is like very wild, actually.
Yeah, it is. Yes, we can quantify joy, and that was a big challenge to do so. So let me start with the objective. Again, if our goal is to maximize good times, then it means there is something like 100% good time. Yeah. So how do we know that we have 100% good time? And a good time actually takes place in the very present, so in this very moment. And if this moment is gone, and now it's gone, the next moment comes. And if I'm measuring moment to moment to moment how good my times are, then eventually I'm having a ratio. Say 24 hours a day, and 12 hours of the time, I really enjoyed my time. And 12 hours of the time, I preferred doing something else, but I had to do something. So that would be 50% a positive experience, 50% a good time. So if we do that frequently, then over not just a day, but over a week or over a month, then you have an average. And then you can tell I'm having an average good time ratio of, say, 50%. And knowing this is very helpful because now you're motivated and say, how can I get to 60%? And you start in being creative. But with the app that we developed, and which is inherent rooting from how we assess good times, how we measure the GTR, we also know what is draining your energy, what is giving you bad times and what is giving you good times. And in that case, you see not just your good time ratio as a number, as a quantified way to to see how well your life is performing for you, but you also know what is lifting it and what is draining it, and then you can replace it. You can trade the things that pull you down with the things that are better. Say, for example, you hate your work, but it's 50% of your time.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And
I
actually,
was thinking
scale it.
about it. Yeah.
Yes, let's just say 50% of your time is work time. Just
Okay.
for calculation, we know it's more. So knowing that the work's 50% negative, you could get into details and say, what of the work drains me? And I don't want to get too much into details because we have a limited time here. But if you go on goodtime.app, then you see how it exactly works. And we have then you can go into details and see what in the work is draining me and how can I improve it. For example, if the work task is draining you, however, your colleagues are lifting you, that's a nice thing. If your colleagues are if your colleagues are draining you, your work is draining you, your salary is draining you, and the workplace is draining you, and you feel shit about yourself, then you might want to change your location. That you say, okay, I might do the same work, but with nicer colleagues, with a nicer workplace, with a nicer salary or a nicer acknowledgement, more acknowledgement, and that lifts it already. And then you can slowly improve. And so now you say, okay, great, I have a nicer workplace, I have nicer colleagues, more support, I have better salary and more capacity for the things I enjoy doing. Now let me try to also find more joy in the work itself, and perhaps change here and there something, that my work tasks that drain me are shorter, that I don't have too much of those, or I perhaps even eliminate this work task and go on another work task that is better, that gives me more joy. And in that way, you can really systematically improve your whole good time ratio. And it's not a guesswork anymore and say, if I do this, then maybe later I'm going to be better off. No, you know exactly, if I'm doing this, then I'm going to be better off. And if doing this, I'm going to be worse off. I can predict that. I don't have to be surprised when I'm suddenly in a situation that I really hate. If
Right.
you measure if you measure your satisfaction with yourself, and you're slowly gaining weight, and it's not about the weight, but you're slowly, every time you're taking a look at of yourself and asking, how comfortable am I in my body? And you seeing the graph dropping slowly over a week, you shouldn't be surprised in a year, oh, now I'm overweight. How did I get here? No, it's really clear. You see it a week after a week and say, something is dropping here. I need to change something that I stay comfortable in my body. And in that case, you keep it also up. So it's a very easy, very simplified. Meanwhile, it was a complex path to get to that point, but meanwhile very distilled and very clarified. That's a very easy way to navigate your life.
I'm absolutely finding it fascinating, Christian, because let's just admit that data gives us clarity. Um,
Mhm.
at least, if sometimes, when we're trying to do self introspection or trying to analyze what's going wrong, uh, lots of thoughts, they like bombard our mind, and we kind of get flustered and confused and frustrated, and then we, just sleep on it. Let's just forget it. Let's just go ahead with the
Mhm.
flow. We'll see what happens. But I think looking at this from a data perspective, very analytical, structured perspective, it really brings that sense of, or at least, paves the way for a sense of clarity. So
Mhm.
I think this is really fascinating. And, because now, once again, there will be, and I'll just take another 4, 5 minutes here because, we are actually very short on time, but it's a very important concept. So, now people will say that life isn't a spreadsheet. How can you quantify emotions? They're not
Mhm.
quantified. How do we keep the soul inside the science here, Kristen?
Go with the flow, really. And basically, you have the data, and the data show you how well you're flowing. And emotions, uh, saying emotions can't be quantified is a bold statement, because we even give names to emotions. For in every culture, there is this attempt to give a name to an emotion. Until today, there is no proper definition of love. I made one, by the way, if you're interested in, but there is no proper definition of love, and yet everyone is saying it's love. And when you ask people who are freshly in love, a 20-year-old versus a 60-year-old or 70-year-old who is 35 years, 40 years in the same relationship, they say, yes, it is love, but somehow it is different. So yet we give it a name. So um, what is the real definition behind all of those emotions? And it comes down to energy flow eventually. Energy flow in a certain direction. And emotions are our internal navigation system, or say our internal, I wouldn't say compass, because it's more accurate than a compass. It is kind of an internal map and navigation system that says, I'm repelled from something. I don't want this. I want to get away from here. But instead of what do I want to get away from here, we have those different negative emotions that clarify what exactly. For example, I'm disgust, or I'm angry, or I'm upset, I'm sad. These are different emotions that allow us to make better decisions and not just saying, everything is bad. No, it's not just bad. It's just disgusting. So let's remove that part. Or I'm just angry. Angry from a psychological point of view is defined as a reaction to perceived injustice. So it's basically you feeling like I'm right, but someone did not right to me. And that's an internal perspective. And knowing that allows opening up a conversation and says, I don't feel fairly treated. And instead of saying, I need to leave you, this is a very different. So our body gives us already indicators, but basically tells you something needs to be changed. And therefore, looking at those things, this is literally the soul, kind of. I wouldn't give it the name of soul, but it's basically you're removing inner blockages so that your soul is flowing, that your desires, your internal state is just blooming and shining. And if you removed all the blockages from your environment to the people, to the work and the things you get, and most importantly, all the blockages about yourself, no self-judgment, a lot of self-love, self-acceptance about your body, all of that, you are shining. And this is a tool for us. So quantifying it, making an app out of it, what we're doing, is basically a tool for us that supports our soul being alive. Because this world nowadays is much more complex than it was 100,000 years ago. And sometimes we are confused making good decisions in this world. And with data, it makes it easier.
Yeah. And I actually believe that it's not about completely dismissing the need for, uh, you know, experiencing pain or struggle. Sometimes pain or struggle can be really, give us that joy, satisfaction. For, let's say, something, we enjoy doing something, and for example, I enjoy podcasting, and I have to do these shows sometimes in the middle of the night because of the time difference. Sometimes I really feel drained out, physically drained out. However, when I do the shows, it gives me joy, internal joy. And that kind of, uh, negates that physical pain in there. I don't feel completely drained out.
But you do.
But
It's
I do
just less.
physically.
It's
It's
just
just
less.
less. It's
So
less.
it shouldn't be on the cost of your self love and your
Yeah.
self well-being. So that's why we have those 5 areas that you find in the GoodTime app, where
Mm.
it's yes, it perhaps gives you joy doing this, but not on the cost of yourself. For example, if I'm eating
Yeah.
unhealthy, it gives me joy in the moment, but if I'm feeling
Sure.
increasingly unsatisfied with my appearance, then I better
Yeah.
find something else that gives me joy without compromising on my appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is also makes
And yes, yes, if we have a negative experience and pain, it can be helpful because it can be a reminder of I need to change something.
sense.
However, you shouldn't get into this again. You should learn out of it. And if you forgot that memory, how it was in that bad situation, you ending up being there again. A data point will remind you of this and will just create a system that works for you. But ideally, when you set up your system and you are consciously living and paying attention to keeping everything up, you wouldn't end up in that situation again where you need a reminder, I need to change. Because before it's already bad, you change what's needed to let it be good. So therefore, really managing your life smoothly, you don't have to do anything. You just want to. I had an interview some years ago with a Nobel Prize nominee who lived his whole life very independently on his terms. And he gave the statement, if you have to do something, you don't have your life under control. And that's a bold statement. And I thought, like, how can you say that? Because most people
No.
would say, I have to work. I mean, I have to take care of my family. But basically, if you have that mindset, I have to, it's already too late that something in your life is messed up, that it's not flowing well enough. So if you really have to do something, you don't fully have your life under control. And with our app, we so hope that we can support people that they get out of this I have to. I just want to. And that's good.
Mm, that makes sense. That makes sense. And one final question before we wrap up. Okay. Now, my dad, he still tells me that you experience the joy of holidays or weekends when you have your weekdays, when you work on your weekdays.
Mhm.
It's like the contrast, the principle of contrast. So, isn't pain actually what sharpens our appreciation of joy, Christian? Like if we eliminate the bad entirely, it's like the villain and the hero stuff. Um, don't we risk making the good feel flat?
No, no. It's you feel the good better if everything else is bad because the contrast is so high. But it's the same with taking a drug. So, for example, in most world wars, I mean, there were just two in the world wars, and in most wars, soldiers were on drugs.
Yeah.
They were just pushed on drugs that they can go through this horrible experience. However, when those soldiers came home, they immediately got off drugs. They weren't addicted. So the difference was that the soldiers in the war environment, the war experience was so low that the contrast to the drug was just so high that they were basically addicted to the drug. However, if your life is generally good, you don't the delta, the gap between the feeling, the experience you have with the drug versus without the drug is so minor that you
Hmm.
don't need that drug. And you can still appreciate your life. You're not drawn towards I need this ultimate experience. So yes, if you hate your job and you really work 5 days a week, you probably say weekend I need to get the most out of it because I don't
Yeah.
have it for long. And then you're really looking forward to that weekend. However, you wouldn't need that if your whole life is just lovely. If you wake up every day with a joy and a smile on your face and say it's amazing to be alive. And that yeah, that is possible, by the way. I want to really emphasize that. I experience myself and I do it every day. And I'm paying attention to keeping this. And it is more than possible because I've been also on the complete other side where I didn't want to wake up at all anymore. And it's a systematic approach. But the point is you I can appreciate every single moment in life without thinking about the bad moments I had alternatively. Saying, oh, I'm so grateful that I'm so healthy because I had times where I wasn't. That would be a way to think about it, but honestly, it's not on my mind at all. I'm just saying I'm so grateful that I'm so healthy because it just feels good and I can do what I want. It's good enough. I don't need a reminder how things could be bad alternatively.
Mm, that's a very good answer, Christian. Very good answer. It's actually it's a tough question because it kind of challenges the fundamental, the basic in there.
The
So
belief, the belief, what you said, I need to have a bad time so get that I have a good time.
yeah.
I need to have a bad time that I can appreciate the good times. And that's the good time paradox that is simply not valid. You don't need to have a bad time to have a good time because you just need energy flow. And every time you ensure the flow and remove the blockages, you have a good time. No need for a bad time in the first place.
Brilliant, brilliant, Christian. This was such a brilliant conversation. And finally, for our listeners, they would like to explore more about the GoodTime app that you've created, and they would also like to connect with you. What is the basic trend?
Yeah, so the GoodTime app, you can test it. It's currently a web application. So just go on your browser on goodtime.app. Very simple, goodtime.app, and sign up and make the first assessment. It takes currently a little bit, but yeah, the first time you're doing this, it might take 20 minutes. Later, it takes 10. And then you have your dashboard and you see right away where it's going. And if you want to know more about me, you can go on chrisw.co, chrisw.co, C-O, and you can find more about me. I also have some social media platforms, but I don't have them on my mind. So yeah, you can find me there.
Great, great. I'll make sure to add all the links in the show notes for our
Thank you.
listeners. And Christian, I think this is such a bold and powerful uh, discussion. Um, I think it's kind of removing the wheel from a kind of or like the fog is getting removed, and we can see the clarity in there. And when the world is still selling us suffering as currency for happiness, we actually hold the power to shift that equation, to track, to actually sustain, to thrive, and expand our good times without waiting for permission. So, thank you so much for doing this.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Brilliant. And listeners, I just want you to sit with this. Maybe life isn't about earning good through bad. Maybe joy isn't a trophy at the finish line, but a practice we can choose moment by moment. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of The Mindful Living. Until next time, keep living mindfully, keep questioning the stories you have been told, and keep making space for the good that's already there. Thank you.